The Man Who Turned to Smoke. In the village of Amangwu, there lived a man named Azila. He was not just any man, but one with terrifying powers, known across the land for his ability to communicate with the gods. Azila worshipped three gods: Amadioha, the god of thunder and justice; Ajala, the god of creation; and Agwu, the god of divination and mysteries. His house, which sat on the highest hill in the village, was always filled with smoke from sacrifices, and villagers dared not speak ill of him, for they feared his wrath. Azila could command the rain to fall just by raising his hand, and when he was angry, even the animals in the forest hid from his fury. People spoke in hushed tones about him, some saying he had the power to summon the spirits of the dead. He had 3 wives. His first wife bore him 3 daughters, but to his disappointment, no sons. Azila, driven by greed and pride, believed that sons were the only legacy worth having. In a terrifying act, he sacrificed his 3 daughters, offering them as a burnt offering to the gods, seeking more power and favor. The villagers whispered about the smoke that rose from his compound. That night, a thick, unnatural fog that lingered for days. From then on, the villagers feared him even more. His second wife, Nkigo, was known throughout the land for her beauty. She bore him 4 children, 2 boys and 2 girls, and Azila was pleased. Yet, the people often pitted Nkigo, for despite her beauty and fertility, she lived in constant fear of her husband's powers. Every time she spoke, her words trembled, as if even in her thoughts she feared invoking Azila's wrath. His third wife, Nkechi, was barren. But this was not by chance. Azila had made a pact with Agwu, and as part of their covenant, all of Nkechi's children were taken before birth. It was whispered that the spirits of those unborn children hovered around their father's compound, wailing in the dead of night, but no one dared speak of it in the open. As the New Yam festival drew near, the village buzzed with excitement. It was a time to celebrate the harvest, and Azila, being one of the wealthiest farmers, was always at the center of the festivities. His yams were the largest, his goats the fattest, and his chickens the healthiest. But what the villagers didn't know was that Azila's bountiful harvest came at a deadly price. The night before the festival, Azila made his sacrifices. He took the blood of his best animals, his prized goat and chickens, and poured it before the gods. The gods whispered to him through the smoke, instructing him to feed the people with the leftover flesh of the sacrifices. But the gods demanded more than just blood. They craved souls. Each year, after the feast, 3 virgins mysteriously died, their bodies found lifeless in their homes, with no signs of struggle. The elders called it the curse of the New Yam, but they never dared accuse Azila of any wrongdoing. That year, as the people feasted, the sound of drums filled the air, and the villagers danced and laughed, oblivious to the dark magic at play. But one elder, Obioma, a wise and brave man, suspected that Azila's powers were not natural. He approached Azila cautiously during the feast. "Azila, your gods bless you every year, but we lose our daughters after every festival. Can this truly be the will of the gods?" Obioma asked, his voice steady but filled with hidden fear. Azila smiled, a sinister grin that sent chills down Obioma's spine. "The gods demand balance. Obioma, you cannot receive blessings without sacrifice. Our land thrives because the gods are satisfied." Obioma left with a heavy heart, knowing he could do nothing against Azila's power. One day, as Azala bathed in the privacy of his compound, his youngest daughter, Nkemdari, by chance, wandered near. Curious and innocent, she accidentally caught a glimpse of her father's nakedness, something no mortal should witness, for Azila believed his body was sacred to the gods. Furious, Azila roared, "You have seen the nakedness of the gods. For this, you shall turn to ash." His words were spoken with such venom that the earth trembled. Nkemdari, terrified, began to cry, but before her tears could hit the ground, her body turned into fine ash, blown away by the wind. Her mother, Kigo, hearing the commotion, rushed out and fell to her knees, pleading with Azila. "Please, my husband, bring her back. She is just a child." But Azila's heart had long turned cold. The gods have consumed her soul. She belongs to them now. From that day, Nkigo's heart broke, and she withered into sorrow. Nkemdari's ashes were swept away by the winds, and it was said that the earth where she stood remained barren forever. As time passed, Azila's powers only grew. There was nothing he couldn't do. One day, while standing in his courtyard, he pulled his head from his neck as if it were a simple task, and held it in his hands to trim his hair. A young girl in the distance, climbing an oha tree to gather leaves, saw the horrifying act and screamed in terror. Azila, hearing her cry, turned his gaze towards her and cursed her. "May you turn into an anthill." Instantly, the girl's body twisted and shrank, becoming a mound of earth swarming with ants. Her family found her later that evening, but there was nothing they could do. The ants scattered before them, as if mocking their helplessness. The fear of Azila spread beyond Amangwu, reaching neighboring villages. People spoke of him as a man who had traded his humanity for the power of the gods. But as with all men, the time came for Azila to face his end. One day, sensing that his death was near, he called his family together and told them to prepare for his burial. The villagers gathered, curious to see what kind of death awaited a man like Azila. Would the gods descend to claim him, or would he simply vanish? Azila, always eager to demonstrate his power, stood before the people. With a voice full of pride, he said, "I will not die like ordinary men. Watch as I transcend this world." With that, Azala removed his clothes and stood tall. Slowly, his body began to change. Starting from his head, he turned to smoke, the transformation spreading down to his toes. The villagers watched in awe and terror as the smoke thickened, filling the air with a suffocating mist. Then, with a final gust of wind, Azila vanished into the sky, leaving nothing behind. No one ever saw him again, but the stories of Azila, the man who turned to smoke, are still told to this day.
Thank you for listening to this tale. What do you think about the story? Feel free to leave your comments below. And don't forget to subscribe for more folk stories like this. We promise to improve on the images and the storylines. The comments and subscriptions give me more reason to upgrade. Love you all.